Alright, now the term China virus started trending on March 16th when President Trump sent out this message on Twitter. The United States will be powerfully supporting those industries like the airlines and others that are particularly affected by the Chinese virus. We will be stronger than ever before. Immediately after sending this tweet, there was a tremendous amount of backlash amongst Americans, specifically those in the Asian American community. And well, we've never really handled the race relation that well in America, and comments like this just further drive a wedge in an already very divided nation. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. You're thinking, Cyrus, you're overreacting. You know, I'm not calling it the China virus because I'm racist. I'm simply calling it the China virus because that's where the virus came from. Well, I want you to think of it in terms of another perspective. Let's just imagine that you're from Florida like I am, and the virus just so happened to come from Florida, and we start calling it the Florida virus. Well, now every Floridian has to deal with that, and all of a sudden, as soon as you go out on the streets and you say, look, I'm from Florida, they're going to associate you with that virus, even if you have nothing to do with it. So there's a very clear reason why we don't want to associate this virus with a specific place, because it really alienates a specific group of people. Now, especially in America, where we have a tremendous amount of different Asian communities. You know, what was interesting is I saw a lot of people in Hong Kong were actually commenting and saying, yes, this is called the China virus. Let's call it the China virus. But this is actually very dangerous for them because, you see, most people in America, they're not going to be able to distinguish people from Hong Kong or people from Korea or Japan. They're just going to see them as Asian. And unfortunately, all Asian people are going to get stereotyped, you know, when you're calling it the China virus. Further illustrate my point, let's look at Chris Cuomo's segment on CNN.
That goes for the president, too. Take a look at his briefing notes, okay? Look what he did. He didn't touch anything on the page that I'm sure somebody else wrote, except to change corona in virus to Chinese. His job is to reassure us, okay? To let us know that we'll get through this. The word coronavirus crossed out and changed to Chinese. Who does that help? We don't need an enemy. We have one, the virus. Trump doesn't need to slide blame. We know how we got here. This isn't about China. It's about us. We are the solution. We must be together.
Now, you see, to avoid situations like this happening, the World Health Organization in 2015 set some guidelines and parameters for naming diseases. This was actually published in May 2015, and we can clearly say at the top of this list of the many terms that cannot be included is geographical locations like cities, countries, regions, or continents. But you see, President Trump, along with the White House, doubled down. This is a recent tweet that they also sent out, and it said, look, Spanish flu, West Nile virus, Zika, Ebola, all named for places. Before the media's fake outrage, even CNN called it Chinese coronavirus. Now, I completely disagree with this tweet, and you can see just by the tone and the nature of this comes directly from Donald Trump's camp. And the reality is when you look at the Zika virus, Zika is a forest in Uganda. That's where it comes, that's what it's named after. Ebola is a river. You know, the West Nile, it's a river. Spanish flu, well, that was over 100 years ago. I hope our race relations have improved in the last century. We have many names for this. We all know that it's called the coronavirus or COVID-19. You know, the reality is that if you're taking it to the extreme and calling it the China virus, you have a little bit of malicious intent when you're using that. Let's just be honest, okay? You're not calling it the China virus because you want to identify where it came from. You're wanting to call it the China virus because you're wanting to put blame on somebody or some country. You're angry about it. I get it. We're all angry. There's not a country, city, household in the world that hasn't been affected by COVID-19. But the reality is that it's not time to put blame on other people. You see, China is in a very interesting situation right now where China, after 2 months of battling with this disease, you know, their life is getting back to normal again. And what China is doing right now is they are sending supplies and medical support to countries all over the world. You know, in fact, right now, there's over 80 countries around the world that is receiving aid from China. And to give you some perspective, I'm going to close on this. If there was one country in the world that could be mad towards China about COVID-19, that country should be Italy. You see, in just a couple of days, Italy will surpass China in the number of total cases. Not only that, Italy leads the world in the number of deaths from COVID-19. But the reality is in Italy, they're very grateful to China. They're very grateful because China is sending them tremendous amounts of medical supplies. They're sending them teams of medical support. Right now, the European Union is not able to give its member states the supplies and the support that it needs. You see, it's not a time to start putting blame on other people. It's a time for the world to unite. So again, let's just stop calling it the China virus. Let's call it what it is. It's COVID-19. It's the coronavirus. Use one of those two terms, and let's stop blaming other people. Let's stop blaming China. The reality is that diseases can come from anywhere in the world. Swine flu, as it was called in 2009, that originated in North America. We don't call it the American flu, and today that is one of the most deadliest flus that ever happened. But yet we don't call, we're not saying let's hold America responsible for that. Let's attack America for introducing this virus that, traveled all over the world. So again, in closing, I want to thank you for watching this video. Guys, let's work on the solution. We have an enemy right now, and that enemy is COVID-19. I want to thank you all for your continued support. Wherever you are in the world, wherever you're watching this from, just know that we are all in together. Let's unite and let's defeat COVID-19.